Hi there. Still away, I'm afraid. So we're still on primitive visual aids. What I was asked to do is something on market concentration. Market concentration is quite an interesting topic in the sense that there's an essay on it a few years ago that created complete carnage because for whatever reason, a lot of candidates hadn't come across the phrase of what a concentrated market meant. And they started using science views as to what concentration might mean and completely screwed it up. Yeah, so everybody started writing about monopolistic competition and so on, and it was a complete disaster. So a concentrated market, yeah, is one where the power in the market, is concentrated in the hands of a few firms. So therefore, the most concentrated market that you can come across would be a pure monopoly because one firm has 100% of the market. Now, the way in which we calculate market concentration is by using concentration ratios. Here's some to avoid too much writing as we go along. I've come up with a few already. Here are some global market shares. So which is the most concentrated market? The answer is the search engine market. Because on the data that I had, there are only four firms. There are only four firms that were mentioned in the first place. And we can see that Google, according to this statistic, at any rate, has 92.5% of the market. Somewhat less concentrated, but still fairly concentrated, is the mobile phone market. So here, a common statistic, is what's called the four-firm concentration ratio. And what you do, but you'll sometimes see the three-firm concentration ratio or the five-firm concentration ratio. And what you do is you add up the combined market share of, in this case, the four largest firms. So in this case, it's 18, 36, 36, 46, 54, 52 rather, plus another 1, 53, 60.6%, is the four-firm concentration ratio. So it's quite a concentrated market because we're saying that the power of the four largest firms have pretty much 60% of the entire market, well over half. If we look at the global car market, we can see that's much less concentrated. Even by the time we reach the seventh firm, they've still got quite a large share. The top firm has less than 10%, so there's nowhere near a monopoly. Nevertheless, so is it monopolistic competition? Well, maybe it is, don't know. If we add up the market share of the four largest firms, 5.5, 11.5, 18.5, 18.9, 27.9, and 28.4. We can see that. We can see that in this case. The market, the four-firm concentration ratio is much lower, and the market is much less concentrated. So that's pretty much close to what we would describe as a pure monopoly. That's an oligopoly. That's heading towards monopolistic competition. So this is a market where we have firms selling similar products. There's a large number of firms. There are barriers to entry, so it's probably not the best example. That's clearly an oligopoly. A market dominated by a few large firms. And that's clearly, as things stand, at least on that data, it's a monopoly. However, part of the problem with this stuff is it often varies by area. So if you looked at the whole UK for the train industry, we'd say, well, that looks like an oligopoly. But as you know perfectly well, each firm has a regional or local monopoly. Likewise here, on the cell phone market, that's all very well. But if you go to Japan, Apple has a 90% market share. In Europe, in Dover-Brooks, Apple has 100% market share. If you go to, I'm sure if you go to Korea, in Europe, Samsung and Apple tend to dominate. Obviously in China, Huawei, Oppo, and the one I'm not going to, Xiaomi. Sorry. They're going to have a much higher market share. So therefore, whether a market's concentrated or not, it depends. It depends on how that market operates and at what level you're looking at. So. The other issue of that is, well, do we care? Do we care how much do we care if a market is concentrated? So if you were writing an essay on concentrated markets, you could talk about monopoly. You could also talk about oligopoly. Either of those things would be fine. Yeah, and they have a number of similar points that one can make. Yeah, and the way that I tend to do it, I think, is when looking at this, is I tend to look at it at firstly, what is true for the consumer. Yeah. Secondly, what can we say about efficiency? Yeah. Thirdly, what can we say about the economy as a whole? And then fourthly, are there any other bits that we might think are important? So, by the view of consumer, do we like concentrated markets? Well, on the one hand, we could argue, that's not so good, because we might expect, that there would be higher prices. Simply because there's a lack. What this is all boiling down to, is a lack of competitive pressure. That's your worry, and as a result of which, you may expect to see higher prices, than you might in, say, perfect competition. You might expect to see lower quality, than you would in perfect competition. So. And obviously, there's going to be, or potentially at least, there's going to be a reduction in choice, relative to what you would see in perfect competition. And you can show that in a fairly simple diagram. If we take the industry diagram in perfect competition, we know that in perfect competition, supply is equal to the sum of the marginal costs of the individual firms, and that's the industry demand. Then in perfect competition, we have a price, PPC, where supply is equal to demand. That's the output there. If a monopoly was to take over this market, then they'd say, well, that demand line is my average revenue line, and what I want to do is I want to maximise the industry profit. So therefore, they would say, well, that's my MR function. I'm going to produce output QM for monopoly. I'm going to charge a price PM, and therefore there would be a loss of consumer surplus, from the point of view of consumers. So monopolies, inevitably, you might argue, tend not to be so great for consumers. On the other hand, we can make the argument a different way. So still looking at the consumer. There are a number of other things that we can say. Firstly, obviously, generally, if the market's concentrated, there are barriers to entry that exist. As a result of which, it's possible to make abnormal profit in the long run, because it's barriers to entry, that mean it's the absence of barriers to entry that mean abnormal profit can be competed away. So we know that in a monopoly diagram, and you can show it. We can show that monopoly diagram fairly straightforward. I'm not going to bother drawing it here because I'm going to draw it a few more times in a minute. But they've got abnormal profit, and as a result of which, that abnormal profit, it can be reinvested, and it can be reinvested into either new products. So you look at the history of the smartphone market. We know that we've had amazing developments over the last 10-15 years. It can be invested into new processors, so new technology to make things cheaper. Or potentially it could be invested into scale. And all of those things potentially can benefit consumers. And I'm kind of overlapping with my second point here, which is dynamic efficiency. And how you would choose to do that is entirely up to you. So here, perhaps it might have made more sense to start talking about efficiency first. But what we can see here, is that potentially consumers are going to benefit very considerably, from all of the improvements in these areas: products, processes, scale, and so on and so forth. And you can give some examples here, but what it boils down to is dynamic efficiency. But obviously, whether you have here, you could start talking about the degree of concentration, because depending on the market structure, they may or may not have incentives to invest. So in a monopoly, they may be less likely to. In an oligopoly, because they face present competition, then obviously they're more likely to invest their abnormal profit. But also the degree of contestability, the threat of competition, may also make a difference. Other points about the consumer is: do we genuinely not have choice? Well, actually, when you look at the car market, actually, each of those car companies produces often owns quite a lot of different brands, so that can be something that you might want to think about. That in reality you do get choice, even in a monopoly, because they produce a range of different products. We could argue that when the market's concentrated, actually quality may be higher, because there's less price competition than in a highly competitive market. And therefore, there's the arguments we often make here about horse meat and so on and so forth. So we could argue that there's a decreased risk of what I sometimes call a race to the bottom. Where everybody tries to be cheaper, and as a result of which quality suffers. We could also argue that sometimes monopoly is quite convenient. I used to like it when Sky had a monopoly over all of the football rights, because it meant that I could just pay one fee and watch it there. Now, if I want to watch football, I've got to if I want to watch it all, not that I would ever would, but I need to subscribe to Sky and to BT and to ESPN and Christ alone knows what else. So sometimes there is an argument that the monopoly can be convenient for consumers as well. The second main set of arguments that I'd make, would be to do with efficiency. And when we're talking about efficiency, it's basically allocative and And the other point about consumers, is that it's not consumers continued. The other point about consumers is that actually prices might be lower under monopoly, because of economies of scale. So they've got huge potential to operate on a large scale. Amazon delivers for free and so on. So although we argued earlier that prices can be much higher, we know that if you look at just your standard economies of scale diagram, if we do the easy one, because it's difficult for me to draw the hard one on this piece of paper. If we argue that we've got a natural monopoly, where long run average cost looks like that, and kind of long run marginal cost looks like that, then what we're saying is that the bigger the firm, the lower the unit costs, because of economies of scale. As a result of which, it's highly likely, that if you have a little firm in perfect competition up here, the lowest they can get prices there, under a monopoly, it's highly likely that to take advantage of these huge economies of scale, they're going to need to charge a lower price to sell more units. So that's another point that you could make. If you turn to efficiency. Then the big ones that we need to talk about are allocative and productive efficiency. So allocative efficiency is simply about maximizing. So none of these efficiencies do with the firm. That's where everybody gets confused. Allocative efficiency is about maximizing welfare for society. Obviously, the firm doesn't give a shit. Because they're just interested in maximizing their own profits. Productive efficiency is about using resources wisely. So it's about trying to make the largest number of units with the fewest amount of resources. So hence you're producing at lowest unit cost. Which means that per unit, resource usage should be minimised. And again, that's good for society. And what we can say is that in concentrated markets, neither of those things are going to be true. We can see that. So we can see that. If we draw ourselves a monopoly diagram, okay, there's AR, there's MR, there's AC. I'll make the firm a profitable one. There's MC. What we can see is that the allocatively efficient point. So the firm's simply going to produce where MC equals MR, charge a price determined by AR. Its unit costs are there, and it makes abnormal profit. So the firm's happier, but from society's point of view, we know that average revenue is demand, and we know that demand is marginal utility. What society would have liked is to produce all the units where marginal utility is greater than marginal cost, because they're all adding to welfare. So therefore, from society's point of view, we would have preferred to be there at the allocatively efficient output, and by failing to be there, there's a welfare loss of that area. From a kind of minimising cost point of view, it's not drawn particularly well, but that would be there. That's the productive, that's the allocative. The productive efficient output is there. Costs could have been much lower at CPE. They could have been at the minimum point of the average cost curve. But because the monopolist doesn't face any competition, they don't have to reduce costs to their minimum point. Therefore, the firm isn't productively efficient. And because they don't have to respond to the needs of consumers, they're not allocatively efficient either. So therefore, although there's lots of profit, and therefore, as we said before, there's a good chance of dynamic efficiency. They're very unlikely to be either productively or they won't be either productively or allocatively efficient. There's also a risk of X inefficiency because they don't face much competition, and costs may spiral out of control. And finally, you can look. Well, finally, you can then make some broader points. But in a 35-minute essay, you're probably going to run out of time at this stage. You could also talk about the economy as a whole. So from the point of view of international competition, you'd probably be wanting big firms to compete on world markets. Otherwise he's going to get crushed by the Americans and by big American multinationals, big Chinese multinationals. So you need those profits and economies of scale to be able to grow, economic growth, to compete. Hence your current account balance. We know that a lot of these firms are big employers, and so therefore that's important too. On the other hand, if you're a neoclassical economist, you won't like it, because the lack of competition may lead to sticky prices, blah 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 blah. Hence, the economy may be less likely to self-stabilize. Outside of the economy, from the point of view of workers, it probably depends on who you work for. So it also depends on the nature of your job. So we've looked at that stuff on Amazon that shows that delivery drivers apparently, according to the BBC, allegedly don't get toilet breaks and so on and so forth, and that they're forced to walk 10 kilometres round the factory or something for peanut. Whether that's true or not, I don't really know, but that's what's been reported. On the other hand, we've also looked at Google, where you get a job there and you get ostrich steak Provençal and paid huge quantities of money. So they have the potential to pay a lot of money, but they also often have monopsony power over workers, which forces down wages. For suppliers, again, the deal it can vary either way. But we saw various clips about suppliers being bullied, because they're at the mercy of the monopoly because they really need them. So. I think the point, this has become far more than 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to shut up, But the other thing that you could talk about in concentrated markets is collusion, so the risk that firms will, especially in oligopoly, will kind of join together. But I think I'd probably better stop at this stage, otherwise it's going to become over long. If someone would like me to do something on collusion, then send me an email and I'll do it.